Hello Year 12 Extension 1. Just a couple of really important corrections actually, that I need you to make. Not so important, but could you please change the exercise number letter? It's actually 5E, and a really important change is this 1 has to be a 0, this 2 has to be a 1, and this 3 has to be a 2. You'll see that this number, the same as the power, the same as the counter on the NCR. Same here. This K minus 1, same as the power, same as the counter on the coefficient. Okay, that's really important that you've made that change. That'd be really good. Well, your notes are wrong without that change. Okay, now let's get started. This exercise is about establishing the greatest coefficient and then the greatest term. Now, as you can see, the notation is confusing. So it's confusing because if we talk about the greatest term, we probably would be saying term. You'd expect that to have term, to have an abbreviation capital T, and in some places it does. Some textbooks it does, capital T for the term. However, for this particular concept of greatest coefficient, for some reason, across all textbooks, they've now introduced lowercase t as the abbreviation for a coefficient. Now, that, I guess you really have to distinguish between the position of the term, the number of the term, and the coefficient of the term. We know in Pascal's triangle that when n is 1, we've got 2 terms. When n is 2, we've got 3 terms. Oh, sorry, 1, 2, 1, a coefficient. But there are 3 terms. And for most of us, I'd assume you would call that the first term. And we know that that is, in this case, 2C0. It's the first term, but the counter for the coefficients is 0. So these counters for lowercase t don't line up with the actual name or the counter of the term. And that's where this correction down here becomes so important. You have to make this correction because this lowercase t is actually referring to the coefficient. Now, the coefficient that we will call, let's move over here to the general one. The coefficient for x to the k is called t to the k. And the value from Pascal's triangle is NCK. All of that's correct. However, we know that NC0 is the actual one more term. So while these values or counters are all K's, if a question asks what is the greatest term, and we obviously need to work out the value of K, and realise, and the value of k plus 1, and realise that in the terms where you're using k plus 1 as your coefficient, it is actually the k plus 2 or k plus second term. Now, hopefully that hasn't been too confusing. I'll stop the video because eventually it'll get too long.